today I'm doing another book unhaul. I feel like I just did one, but I've acquired quite a bit. I've got like a little pile, and then I got this bag. I just kicked the camera, sorry. And then I've got this bag full of stuff. I have an appointment to sell stuff this weekend. So I figured I better film this before I get rid of all of these books. I'm filming this on a Monday, appointments on Saturday. I have like one or two other books I want to try to read before then that are on my reread to unhaul / amnesia reads project. I need to film that, talking about what that is. We'll see if I get to that today. But anyway, I've got a mix of stuff. Let's just start to go through it. So first off, from two books that I have already gotten rid of, I have given to little free libraries, and that is Bone Shaker by Sherry Priest, and what was the other one? A is for Alibi, which, Bone Shaker I didn't enjoy. I talk about that, I think, in one of my recent wrap-ups. Along with A is for Alibi. A is for Alibi I enjoyed, but then I've kind of been thinking about the number of books that I'm getting from a little free library, and I'm like, you know what, if it's not like a 5-star, I should probably return it to the free library, you know. So we'll see how that goes. I'll probably do some kind of wrap up with like my end of the year stats about like how many books did I get from a free library, and of the ones I read, how many was there anything I really decided to keep. But anyway, continuing with free library stuff, I decided to unhaul The Goblin Emperor. This is one I read in January, and I was actually quite pleasantly surprised by it. But since reading it, it kind of has fallen out of my feelings. But yeah, like, I did really enjoy this. But if I'm going, there's like a sequel or a companion novel to this. If I want to read that, I'll borrow it from my library. I don't really feel like I'm going to reach for this to read again. So, and especially since I got it from a free library, I should return it. Another one is Girl's Guide to Missiles. I talk about this in a recent wrap-up and also say that, like, it was fine. But again, don't really feel like keeping it. Two that I haven't reviewed yet, that'll be an upcoming video, is Dead Until Dark, which is the first book in the series that True Blood is based on. This was fine, curiosity satisfied, not really my favorite vampire book, but like glad to have read it. And then The Lady's Handbook for Her Mysterious Illness by Sarah Raimi. I'm going to have a lot of thoughts on this. In summary, I feel hesitant to recommend people to read it, but I want people to know about it. So for more thoughts, stay tuned to my April wrap-up. Another random one, this is Transcription by Kate Atkinson. This is one I borrowed from my in-laws. I have read it. I will also talk about this in my upcoming wrap-up, but now that I finished it, next time I go up to their house, I will be returning it. Okay, other things. Let's just start going through the bags. This is a book I just finished today. Mistress of the Art of Death by Ariana Franklin. I'm giving this 4 stars. But I don't feel like I'm going to be pulled to read it again. I feel like for what it is very good. But what it is a lot of genres that I'm not very drawn to, which is historical fiction, Middle Ages, feudal historical fiction, and like forensic criminal mystery. And like this is very good, but it is very dark. The crimes investigated are very graphic and disturbing. So it's just like a little bit too dark for me to love it, but I can recognize it is very well done, and I really enjoyed the audiobook for it. I feel like the audiobook really brought a lot of life to the kind of like formal, archaic language that was used for it, but it feels fitting because it takes place in the 1100s. So I need to take my notes out of here for my wrap-up, but I will be taking this to be sold. Their Dogs Came With Them by Helena Maria Viramontes. This was one of my first reread Unhauls I read last year. It's very early. It was in one of my very early wrap-ups, and I liked it. I wrote a review for this on Goodreads, but after some time, after letting it sit on my shelves for a while, I'm like, you know what? Nah, I don't really need to keep this. I would rather sell it for credit, get another book that I'm more excited for or that I've already read and I love more, or if the bookstore doesn't take them, I would rather trade this for something from a free library. I'm trying to get better at carrying books around with me to trade from a free library instead of just taking stuff and then hoping that I will get rid of stuff in the future. Gonna get rid of the Children's Illustrated Bible. This has been kind of like a reference book I've been keeping, and I have never opened it. And then kind of paging through it, I'm like, you know what, if I want something that's like an anthropological or historical reference for the Bible, I think I'm gonna go with a grown-up one rather than a children's one. So, let's see. This is a double bind-up of 2 Sarah Dessen books, Someone Like You and Keeping the Moon. I just feel no desire to reread this, so I'm gonna give it away. This is also a recent read that I will talk about more. No, I talked about this in my vlog that I think went live today. I'm filming on Monday, and then I'll wrap up in my future wrap up. But this is The Tale Teller by Anne Hillerman. I read this because this is a genre and an author that my mother-in-law tends to read, so I was kind of trying to get an idea of like what kind of things in this drew her to the stories, so that as I, you know, think about Christmas gifts and stuff in the future, I have a sense of what premises and what tropes and stuff she's drawn to. It was fine. Doesn't really suit me, and you know, it's in good condition. Well, don't desire to keep it. Let's see. Oh, I've got some plays I'm getting rid of. I'm getting rid of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. I actually quite like this play. It is a parody of the characters of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, which are from Shakespeare's Hamlet. Yes. So it's good, but I'm just like, I don't need to keep this. And same feelings. I have A Baby Makes Seven by Paula Vogel. I don't know if they'll take this paper thing, but I just kind of look at these on my shelf and I'm like, I would rather trade those for something else that I am more excited to read or reread. So, something I purchased used and I will pass forward is The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. This was fine. I think the book, I feel like if you're someone who has like watched the Netflix series and is like, what is the whole hullabaloo about this? The book really gets into it more, but I've read a couple of other minimalism, unhauling, story of stuff kind of books, and the one that I liked the best that I've read so far is Goodbye Things. So that's one that I would be interested in finding a copy of. And this one is like, I can check, if I really, really want to revisit exactly what is in here, I can check it out from my library, but I feel like I've gotten what applies to me out of it, and I can pass it forward to someone else. Alright, now we've got a whole series. We got 5 books. Actually, I don't know if this is the entire series, but it's the 5 books that I have. And this is, I just reread Across the Nightingale Floor. This was one of my amnesia reads. The series is called The Tales of the Otori. And the whole series is Across the Nightingale Floor, Grass for His Pillow, Brilliance of the Moon, the Harsh Cry of the Heron, which is the last tale, and Heaven's Net is Wide, which is a prequel to Nightingale Floor. So this was a series that I read as a teenager, and I think it sat in my feelings because it was one of the first like adult series I got into as a teenager, and I thought it was really beautiful, and upon rereading it, I'm like, I think I was just feeling some appreciation for the aesthetic of feudal Japan. But upon rereading it, I was just thinking, do I want to read another 4 books in this series? No, I don't. Its time has passed. I'll get more into it in my wrap-up, but these are 5 books I'm getting rid of, and it's a shame, because especially the hardcovers are friggin' beautiful covers. But I would rather make room for books that I'm more excited to read. Okay, next bag. Okay, this is another series where I've got quite a few books. Which one's number 1? I don't know. I'm just going to call it the Reality Dysfunction series. I have all but the last book, part 2. So this is a series that it's really, I think the story is actually really, really interesting. It's about, so it's a really sprawling, detailed space opera, and it follows the events around. So there's like this satanic cult that performs like a ritual murder, and somehow, I forget exactly why, somehow it creates a reality dysfunction, a tear in space-time continuum, and basically the souls of the dead come pouring into the universe and start possessing living bodies. And that creates utter terrifying chaos. So we follow quite a few perspectives in this, and I love that premise because it wrestles a lot with like the good and evil nature of humanity, because some of the souls that possess bodies kind of like, because they kind of get like these supernatural powers with being able to warp reality, you know, they're kind of evil. Like this is a terrifying infection to describe it as that. So a lot of these bodies just kind of like inhabit a living body, will warp it, will wreak terror on the land. But some of the souls that inhabit people are quite well-meaning, and they're like, I don't mean you harm. I just want to understand like what's going on. So I'm a sucker for any kind of trope that really discusses like nature versus nurture. Is human nature is human nature inherently good or inherently evil? So I think it does it in a really interesting way that quite blends science fiction. I mean, I would say this is more science fantasy because it has like these purely supernatural elements, but it's definitely a space opera kind of category. The reason I'm unhauling it is I recently tried to reread it, and I got about 3 books in, and I just could not stand how the author was writing the women. I somehow just like didn't really have the proper awareness to pick up on it the first time I read it, but now it's a bit of a spoiler, but to give you an idea of like what bothers me so much. We follow one perspective of this. He's not this like adventuring space captain, and he's kind of a womanizer, okay, but he goes to this planet, and they're being hosted by this family, and the family has a 15-year-old daughter, and the mother makes a point of seducing the captain, mostly because she's bored, but also she's like, I'm doing this because I've seen you looking at my daughter, my 15-year-old daughter, and I don't want you going anywhere near her, so I'm going to offer myself up to you, also for my own benefit, so that you don't go after her. And he goes after her anyway and gets her pregnant. Now, granted, the 15-year-old daughter's storyline of escaping her planet when it gets infected is quite interesting. Like, the girl herself is one of the better written female characters, I should say, but the whole premise of like how she gets involved in it is icky, and I don't like it. this is a popular author. If I really want to reread the series, I can find it from my library. They don't need to be taking up room on my shelves. So, got some middle grade. We've got Indian Captive, the story of Mary Jemison. I actually kind of reread this and talked about it in some monthly wrap-up. And for the time in which it was written by a white woman, it was actually quite well-researched and sympathetic and sensitive towards the Seneca tribe that is featured in here. But upon reflection, I'm like, I don't need to hang on to it. I don't need to keep it. Okay. And I've got Dear America, Voyage on the Great Titanic, and The Royal Diaries, Elizabeth I. These are books I've had since I was like 10 years old. I think I've held on to them so much because they're like hardcover and they've got these ribbons. They're just very cute and aesthetically pleasing, and they were like one of the few like historical fictions that I was quite into, but I don't feel like if I want to read about historical fiction about the Titanic or Queen Elizabeth, I'm probably not going to be reaching for middle grade. So someone else will hopefully quite enjoy these. I've got Queen of the Damned by Anne Rice and The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. I recently did a little bookshelf. Ooh, it was in my first vlog. I did a bookshelf reorganization. I decided to unhaul these two because I had recently reread the first 3 books that I own from this vampire series. I like Interview with the Vampire the best. I don't need to keep the rest of them. Then, I talked about some of these books in my first vlog, but I am going to try to sell my collection of The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper. I really enjoyed the first book, and the rest of the series was so, like, dense and dark and boring compared to the first book. So, yeah, so I'm going to try and sell this because this is a nice box set. I've got A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. This was good, but again, like, historical fiction is just really not my jam, and I'm like, I would rather, if I'm going to read something historical fiction, I'd rather read something that I haven't read before to try and find something that I truly love, rather than rereading something that I already know I'm going to feel kind of meh about. So, I'm going to try and sell that. I think I've shown this in an unhaul before, but I haven't finished getting rid of it, and that's a hardcover of Drowned Wednesday by Garth Nix. This is a series I really like. I replaced my hardcover with a paperback because I own the rest of the series in paperback, and it made it very difficult to store them on my shelves and keep them all together. Selling this. Don't need to discuss it. I'll see if they take this. This is a Classics Illustrated Aesop's Fables. I realize I have like a little hardcover book of more Aesop's Fables. I'm like, oh, this is kind of like a duplicate, so I can pass this one along. And then I'm gonna try and sell this box set of the Family Adventure Library that has Black Beauty, Heidi, and The Secret Garden. Is that everything? I think it's everything. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna try and sell. If there's anything that they end up not taking, I'm probably going to. I want to clarify, the books from the free library, I am not trying to sell. Those are in my pile to take with me on my walks to return to free libraries. Just want to make that clear. But yeah, if there's other stuff that the bookstore ends up not taking, I have started a Pango Books account. I think it's a fairly new app. It's like a Poshmark or a Depop resale marketplace, but right now it's specifically for books. I learned about this through Starla Reads. She had gotten like a sponsorship or something to talk about it. And I've actually already bought some books from there because one seller had 3 books that I was actually really interested in and good prices, and so I'm like, all right, let me try this out, and it was legit. So if I have other books that the bookshop doesn't take, that I think people might want to buy, I will list them there. I will have a link in my description box for that if there's anything on here that you would be interested, if you want to see if it arrives there. Again, I'm filming this on a Monday. I'm selling things on Saturday. I think this video is going to go up like the following like Sunday or Monday. So yeah, theoretically by the time this video goes live, anything that the bookshop didn't take will be listed on Pango. I didn't count how many books that was. I don't care. I actually do have a list going. Just so like at the end of the year I can be like, I unhauled X number of books. That's it for this video. I hope you have a good rest of your day. I encourage you to go out into the world and be curious. I will have my other social media places linked in the description box below if you would like to connect with me elsewhere. Yeah, I will catch you all in my next video. Bye!